Pick a fight with a stranger on the internet today. Really go for it. Type something you'll regret. And in the most literal, provable, written on paper sense, you are screaming at your own cousin. Not in a warm, holding hands, we are the world way. In a cold, mathematical, the numbers leave no other option way. Every person in those comments, every stranger who has ever cut you off in traffic, every face in every crowd you've ever stood in. Family. Distant family? Sure. Embarrassing family? Often. But family. And it doesn't matter where you're sitting right now or how far that is from anyone else watching this. You and I are related, and I can walk you through exactly why, one step at a time, until it stops being a nice feeling and turns into arithmetic you can't argue with. You have 2 parents. Each had 2 parents, which gives you 4 grandparents. Those 4 had 2 each, so 8 great-grandparents. And here's the trick hiding in that little staircase. It doubles every step you take backward. 16, 32, 64. The number doesn't grow, it detonates. Walk back only 40 generations. That's roughly 1,000 years ago. Nights, mud, no plumbing. 40 generations of doubling, and the math flatly insists you needed more than 1 trillion direct ancestors alive at that one moment just to eventually produce you. Let that sink in, because 1 trillion is not a normal number. That's more people than have ever lived on this planet across all of human history combined. It's more than the number of stars in the entire Milky Way. And it gets worse. Rewind to the ancient Romans, around 64 generations, and the same formula demands roughly 1 quintillion ancestors. A 1 followed by 18 zeros. For a single person. For you. This is obviously comically impossible. There were never 1 trillion humans. So the math is screaming that something is broken. And what's broken is the quiet assumption buried in that staircase, that every one of those ancestors was a different person. They weren't. Your family tree isn't actually a tree. Go back far enough and the branches stop fanning outward and start folding back into each other. Scientists have a blunt name for this. Pedigree collapse. The same ancestor shows up in your tree not once, but over and over, filling dozens of slots the math assumed were strangers. Why? Because for almost the entire human story, your dating pool was tragic. No swiping. No meeting someone 3 time zones away. For nearly everyone who ever lived, your only options were the handful of humans you could physically walk to. And in a pool that small, distant cousins quietly marrying distant cousins wasn't a scandal. It was Tuesday. Charles Darwin married his first cousin. Albert Einstein married his. Entire royal dynasties made it official policy. Every one of those overlaps folds that impossible trillion inward, collapsing your sprawling pyramid into something far smaller and far more tangled. So when you run the honest model, the messy one that accounts for how people actually moved, traded, and migrated, you find that everyone's family trees crash into each other shockingly fast. Lay your tree over a total strangers on the opposite side of the planet, trace both backward, and they will meet. Guaranteed. The only question is how recently. And the answer breaks people. Every human alive right now is, at the very least, somewhere around a 50th cousin to every other human alive. All 8 billion of us. The models even point to one specific individual, a real person with a face and a name they never wrote down, who sits as a direct ancestor in the family tree of everyone breathing today. And they're recent, not some shadowy figure lost in the deep mists of prehistory. The estimates land only a few thousand years back. Someone ordinary, maybe a trader, maybe a wanderer, living somewhere with just enough foot traffic that their descendants trickled outward into every branch of humanity. We have no idea who they were. The math is the only proof they ever existed, but everything so far has been ancestors on paper, names in a chart. The moment you start counting the actual DNA inside your body, something genuinely unsettling happens. Somewhere in your family tree is a great-great-great-grandmother who gave you nothing. Not a trait, not a quirk, not one single letter of your genetic code. And she is not the exception, she's the rule. Here's why. Your genes get shuffled and dealt like a deck of cards every generation, and most of the deck gets left on the table. Reach back just 10 generations, and there's roughly a 50% chance any given ancestor handed down literally none of their DNA to you. Go 15 back, and that drops to about 3%. So most of the people in your tree are ancestors in name only, your family on paper, but biologically total strangers. The DNA you actually carry came from a tiny, lucky sliver of that giant pyramid. And here's the whiplash. That sliver is almost identical to everyone else's. Two random humans differ in about one DNA letter out of 1,000. We are stunningly, boringly alike. Two troops of chimpanzees living in neighboring patches of forest in Central Africa carry more genetic variation between them than exists across all 8 billion of us. The reason is grim. We nearly didn't make it. At one point, our entire species may have been squeezed down to as few as 10,000 individuals, barely enough to fill a small arena, scattered thin across Africa. Every person alive today descends from that tiny, terrified group. You can even trace one unbroken thread straight through it. Tucked inside your cells is a kind of DNA you inherited only from your mother, who got it only from hers. An unbroken chain of women, with no shuffling, no mixing, all the way down. Follow that chain back far enough, and every one of those women converges on a single mother who lived in Africa around 150,000 years ago. Other women lived right alongside her, but only her line survived unbroken to today. Every human on the planet carries a thread that leads straight back to her. If 150,000 years feels too abstract, here's how close these threads really run. A 9,000-year-old skeleton was pulled out of a cave in England. When scientists read his DNA, they found a man alive right now carrying a direct, unbroken line back to him through his mother's side. And that man lives barely a mile from the cave where he teaches history. 9,000 years. 300 generations. And the line never broke. Now, pull all the way back. Pull. Every living thing on this planet. You, the person you're arguing with, the banana sitting on your counter that shares a startling chunk of your genes, the mosquito you just killed without a second thought. All of it traces back to one single ancestor that flickered to life around 3.5 billion years ago. One. We are, in the most literal sense possible, one unfathomably enormous family. So the next time a stranger online makes your blood boil, just remember the math has already settled it. You're built from nearly the same stuff. You both lead back to the same mother in Africa, the same anonymous wanderer a few thousand years ago, the same first spark of life on a young planet. You're not strangers. You never were. You're just family that hasn't been introduced yet. And now you have been.